Spotlight is a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. It seeks to spotlight people, places, and events from around the Diocese of Youngstown that promote the new gospel of joy called for by Pope Francis. Your program host is Father James Corda.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Father Jim Corda. Joining me today is Sister Jane Marie Kudlotz and Matt Abramowski. It's nice to have you both on the show today.
We're delighted to be here.
Glad to be here. And we're going to talk about the Villa Maria Education and Spiritual Center. We know it's a new program and development that's there at the Villa. Before we actually get into our conversation about that, why don't we get a little history of Villa Maria? We know that the Humility of Mary Sisters have been with us for 150 years in the United States. So let's talk a little bit about their beginnings here, especially at the Villa.
Our sisters, as you just mentioned, came to this area in we're celebrating our 150th anniversary of our coming to the United States. And so we first went to Louisville, Ohio by invitation, and then several months after that we were given this property, which is now our mother house in Villa Maria, Pennsylvania, which is just over the Pennsylvania line, 1 mile over the Pennsylvania line. And we have 726 acres, which is very sacred land to our sisters, because for the 150 years that we've been there, our sisters have really worked to preserve that land. And so it is home to the sisters, but over the years it has become home to many other people as well. And so in the early years, the sisters responded to the needs of the place and the time, and so we had some healthcare clinic and took care of orphans. And then we had a high school that was on the property for many years, and I think you mentioned your sister attended the high school. And then in the 80s, that school closed, and so those buildings were free. But there were other things that were happening at the Villa. We always have had a commitment to education. We've had sisters who have worked with farm-based education because we have a working farm at the Villa as well. And we have a deep commitment to eco-spirituality. And there have always been retreats for as long as I've been in the community, and that's for quite a while. There have been women's retreats on weekends in the summer, so the retreat program was always an important part. And then, as I mentioned, the education as well. So actually in 2005, a new corporation was formed, which is called Villa Maria Education and Spirituality Center. And that was to combine all of those ministries together. So the education ministry, the farm-based education, the eco-spirituality, the retreat center. And then we also began welcoming people to use our facilities because we consider our land very sacred. The sisters have a commitment to share abundant life with God's people. That is part of our sisters' mission. And so this gives us an opportunity to share the gift of our land, which we truly believe is a gift, with people who come to us.
I'd like to invite Matt into the conversation in this way. You know, Sister mentioned obviously about the mission, and also we didn't use the word charism, but that's part of really religious life. As a person coming in as the program director specifically for the center, what attracted you? What was the charism that attracted you to be part of this whole Center for Education and Spirituality?
My first exposure to the Sisters of the Humility of Mary was I was in college at a volunteer fair, and one of the sisters was right across from me, and so I got to learn about a lot of their different ministries. My first position in ministry was at Blessed Sacrament in Warren, and while I was there, I was invited to come and be part of the adjunct retreat staff to help with retreats as I was able, and I was impressed with what I knew about the sisters in the community, and so I came on an adjunct basis for 2 years, and then a full-time position opened up, and so I am continually impressed and amazed by the sisters how well they put into practice what they preach. It's not just talking about humility, but right now they have what they call a living document guiding them. And so daily they make an effort in all they do to live out that charism of humility. And what really impressed me, and one of the reasons I enjoy working at the center, is just their openness. There's always the quote from Mother Madeline, co-founder of the community, about how the doors of the sisters are always open to anybody who wants to share in their life, their mission and ministry. And so it's a great honor and privilege to share in that ministry with them.
We're about halfway through our first segment together. Let's focus a little bit more about the foundation of the community itself. Obviously, you know, the roots go way back to Europe, but let's talk about the foundation here and how it's changed over the years. You know, obviously, things have changed within society, within our surroundings, and how have the sisters in their mission and charism changed over the years for the good and for the building up of spirituality and education?
Well, as you mentioned, we were founded in France in 1854, and the unique thing about our congregation is 10 years after our founding in 1864, our entire congregation, which at that point in time was 10 sisters and a couple of orphans that they were caring for at the time, came to the United States. So at that point in time, there was no remnant in Europe, as with many other congregations. And so as the sisters came here, it was a total commitment to their life in the United States. And when the sisters came to the villa, they actually, as they had done in France, responded to the needs of the time. And so that's how our ministry in healthcare began. That's how our ministry in education began. And we had a deep commitment to educating young girls and women. And our own sisters were learning the language at the time as well. And over time, those remained our significant ministries. But obviously, in, I'd say, the past 30 or so years, as those ministries have altered significantly, and we have had fewer and fewer sisters in the classroom and fewer sisters in healthcare, we have moved to truly being aware of the issues that are facing our world, the striking needs of today that need to be addressed, that we can address. And Matt mentioned our living document. And so we've made a commitment to be gospel women, and to live a compassionate justice, to work with partners in ministry, because we know that we no longer can do the work totally by ourselves, which is why Matt is so important to us at the Education Center. And also then a deep commitment as citizens of the universe in terms of protecting land. And so our efforts are not only to do in those areas, but also to help educate and to make people aware as best as we can.
We're down to 1 minute in our first segment. Matt, tell us just briefly what your role specifically is as the program director there.
Work with the programs and retreats we sponsor. We line up retreats where we bring in speakers and facilitators for both adults and youth. So I oversee and coordinate that. We also have a number of groups who come and use our facility. They rent space from us, bedrooms from us, and they run their own program. And so that's probably the other half of my position, is kind of to mirror, in some ways, the hospitality industry, providing hospitality and working with all the details that go into welcoming those groups to the villa.
We're going to talk more in a moment about the specific programs that you do offer there at the facility, but we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I am Marino.
Je suis Marino.
I am Marino.
I believe that we are all connected to each other, and that is the gift of compassion that unites us and makes us one. It doesn't matter what language, culture, or tradition we come from. We can share compassion wherever we are.
Marino, an American Catholic organization of priests and brothers, has been reaching out to those in need for nearly 100 years in 26 countries throughout the world. Marino dedicates 86 cents of every dollar donated to their programs, and with your help, they can do more. Missioners, workers, volunteers, supporters, we are all Marino.
I am Marino.
Yo soy Marino.
I'm Father Mike, and I am Marino.
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 Welcome back to our show. I'm talking with Sister Jane Marie and Matt, specifically about the Villa Maria Education and Spiritual Center. We know that the center is celebrating basically its 1-year anniversary. So it's a recent opening of this facility that offers so many wonderful different programs. As Program Director, Matt, tell us some of the upcoming programs that are going to be available at the facility.
We have a weekend retreat coming up at the end of the month, September 26th to the 28th. It's climate change. It's on climate change. One of our sisters, Sister Barbara O'Donnell, who is an ambassador with the Catholic Coalition on Climate Change, is co-facilitating that retreat, along with a gentleman who's the executive director of the Catholic Coalition on Climate Change. And so we're hoping that that retreat in particular will appeal especially to young people and some young adults. We know it's a very important topic to explore, and so that'll be a weekend retreat that goes Friday to Sunday. Coming up at the beginning of October, from October 5th to the 10th, we have a conference retreat with Father Michael Crosby, Proclaiming the Gospel in a Wounded World, another very timely topic, and he'll be there for the week. We also, within that, in the fall, have a week-long directed retreat where folks have the opportunity to come spend a week at the Villa. They meet with a spiritual director one-on-one about an hour a day, and then a good part of their day is spent in silence. So we have a variety of programs from week-long to weekend to a one-day labyrinth walk in both September and October. So a lot of different possibilities, and the nice thing is for anybody coming to stay at the Villa, as you mentioned, our new facility, Potier Center, opened in September of 2013. So all overnight guests coming for our programs will be staying in this new facility that has rooms with a private bath. It's a climate-controlled building, so we're excited to house folks in that building when they're staying with us.
I'd like to ask Sister Jane Marie, as president of the corporation, how do you kind of get topics and ideas, and how do you come up with those? Do you look at what's going on in the community, in the world? How do you surface those?
In a variety of ways. We have a program staff, which are several of the sisters who are on staff, Matt, very definitely, myself, and we meet periodically to talk about what we feel would be timely and what would be appealing. And then also we are guided by, and in this case, the living document of the sisters. And so we try to provide speakers that would be consistent with the message and the commitment of the sisters as well. And so that we are sharing that message and sharing what the sisters have identified as important to ourselves, sharing that in terms of the speakers that we bring in. We also have, we get suggestions from other people, and so one of the things that we're hoping to do in the near future is to start some programs that would focus on wellness, things that people are asking us for. And if we are able to provide those things, we will look to those. And one of the things I would add to what Matt said as far as what we offer, we do also offer opportunities for people to just come to the Villa and be, so if we have a number of people who come for a private personal retreat, and so they'll come for 1 night, 2 nights, some come for a week, and they just use our facilities and the space that we have, and the time for silence and to just be contemplative at that point in time. And we also offer Sabbath time, so if people just want to come for a day, we would welcome them for that as well.
What comes to mind when you were mentioning that is how important in our own lives do we need that time just to kind of step away from everything, to get away from the noise that's out there and the hustle of everyday life and the demands that are out there. Why is it important for us to get away and just to take time on our own, and why is this facility a place where we could do that?
You know, the biggest comment we hear from participants in our programs to the hosted groups who come in and just use our facility from a wide variety of faith backgrounds, economic backgrounds, is what a peaceful place this is. And so one comment that we've kind of come to the conclusion as a staff is people kind of find it and see it as an oasis, a spot that they can come to rest and renew. And we know certainly that it's a much needed thing in our lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. And I think probably the greatest testimony to the villa doesn't even necessarily come from us, but from all the people who come and come back again and say what a place of peace and rest they have found it to be. It's a real testament to what the sisters have built and continue to maintain at Villa Maria.
We're down to the last 3 minutes of our middle segment now. Let's talk about spirituality, because that's so important in our lives today. We talk about people, for example, in the Catholic Church not going to church. We talk about our young people who may not be attending Mass and services, but yet there's a sense of spirituality that's so necessary. And when you ask people what's important in your life, whether young or old, they say this spirituality, that this relationship that I have with God, it has nothing to do with religion, but it's what's inside here and how I am with God. And how do you develop that, and how do you celebrate that at the center?
We have found and recognized a deep hunger for contemplative time, which I believe is what you're talking about. And our purpose is to try and provide the space, the opportunity. In some cases it's in some cases it's programs. In some cases it's just really that peaceful oasis that Matt mentioned.
The other thing that people have the opportunity, not just on our directed retreats, but really anytime, is we have some of our sisters are spiritual directors, and so folks who might have some inkling but not sure where they're called to go can come meet with the spiritual director. And it's not counseling, it's not therapy, it's just a chance to help them unpack what's going on inside and where God might be calling them to go. And so we find both with our directed retreats and then personal retreatants that a lot of folks enjoy taking advantage of that opportunity to meet with the spiritual director, to go a little farther in exploring their spirituality and where God might be calling them to go.
Just very briefly, because we have 1 minute left, this is open to not just Catholics, right?
Right.
It's for anybody.
Our mission statement is pretty simple, and it says we're basically open up to anybody who wants to come, any economic status, any faith, any background. Goes all the way back to what Mother Madeline said, that the doors of the villa are always open to anybody who wants to come and share in the life and the mission of the sisters at Villa Maria.
And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Mark Quinn. As I grew up on the south side of Chicago, the Dominican Sisters of Springfield not only taught me, but formed me in my Catholic faith. The sisters worked for very, very little. Now as they've gotten older, they have no savings to fall back on. And we benefited from their sacrifice. And I think it's time that we recognize that much of what we are today, we are because of what sisters did for us. It's our turn to help them out in their hour of need. They don't ask for a lot. They embrace the simple life. I owe them so much. That's why I make an annual donation to the Retirement Fund for Religious. Do you remember the religious men and women who shaped your life? Say thank you to them by donating to the Retirement Fund for Religious at your local parish. Join me. Share in the care.
Welcome back. We're talking about the Villa Maria Education and Spiritual Center. There's two groups that we want to focus on now in our final segment, and that includes the youth and the elderly. And we know that there are programs available and facilities available for both. So let's start with the young. Matt, tell us about that.
We have a number of opportunities available for youth. Over the summer, we just had summer service groups come out. They stay at the villa, and then they go out and do service work. They work with the St. Vincent de Paul Soup Kitchen, with Habitat for Humanity on our farm at the villa. We do a number of retreats for youth, high school retreats for places like Ursuline and Warren JFK. We have a number of parishes come out for a confirmation preparation retreat. We have on the farm a farm-based environmental education program that's fully compatible with the school curriculum in both Ohio and Pennsylvania, and it allows students to take a field trip to our farm and to cover some of their science curriculum, what they need to cover. Also, if they can't come to the farm, the sister who's in charge of that program can go into the classroom and do many of those same lessons. So a lot of different possibilities for youth at Villa Maria.
Wonderful. Let's talk about the elderly who are significant at the villa for a number of years.
Yes, and certainly our own sisters are part of that, in terms of our mother house, so that sisters who are retired are living at the villa. But in addition, there is a separate corporation from Villa Maria Education and Spirituality Center that is Villa Residential Services. And that is a senior citizen apartment building with, I believe, 37 units. And the apartments are intended for senior citizens of middle or low income, who are, I believe, 58 or over. And it's a wonderful opportunity for them because they have their own facility, but they also share in the facilities of the sisters. And so at the villa, we have a swimming pool, we have the beautiful land, which we've talked about, we have our chapel, we have daily liturgy. The amenities that are part of just the operations of the villa become open to the senior citizens as well.
I know personally some priest friends that are part of that live there and that get great benefit from the camaraderie among the people and the sisters that are there. And the space itself is actually wonderful. Which brings me to my question about the different amenities that happen there. And there's so many things that go on within the many acres of the villa where anybody can come to find a niche. You have, we talked about the Sabbath time. You briefly talked about the farm. There's the art house. There's a library. There's a beautiful chapel. So there's many amenities. Let's talk about some of those amenities that might invite and entice people to come. Anything in particular?
Well, one of the biggest highlights I think people really enjoy is the indoor heated swimming pool because it's something that you can use year-round. So that's always a big hit. Folks are just amazed when they're going up to eat in the dining room, and right across from the dining room is the chapel and how beautiful the chapel is. So that's another spot folks really enjoy visiting. As Sister mentioned, the villa's 700 plus acres, and so there's nature trails. There's the large farm. There's the farm market and the greenhouse that folks enjoy visiting and purchasing plants and produce from. So there's a lot, both indoor and outdoor, a lot of different ways that you can spend your time when you're out at the villa.
And we have, you had mentioned the labyrinth. It's an outdoor labyrinth, which is in the grass in one of the fields, which is it's a beautiful spot. There also are a multitude of shrines throughout the whole villa property. And we do have people who come to visit who like to walk and just go and visit. We've had a couple of groups that have come just for a tour, and they go through and will walk through and visit all of the shrines on the property.
Let's say that the folks that are with us want to get in touch with the villa. How do they do that? What's a website that they could contact you?
The easiest way to probably find out anything about our programs is through our website, and it's www.vmesc.org, the abbreviation of Villa Maria Education and Spirituality Center, vmesc.org, or they could give us a call at 724-964-8886, and someone would be happy to talk with them about our different programs and our facility.
we're down to the last 3 minutes of our time together. And I want us to go back to the whole sense of spirituality, because I think that's what a lot of what we do and a lot of the charism is based on our spiritual life. Let's go back to why it's so important to invite people into our space to be nourished and to be revitalized in the Lord. What have you found in your experiences with people this past year and then over the years of what they find at the villa and what they leave with?
I think one of the biggest things that I see is that the peace that people experience when they're here, when they are at the villa, when they come to visit, when they come to stay, is something that they are able to carry back to them, because life is very stressful in many contexts, many situations. And so being able to step back and to step away and to touch what is most important and what is core within each one of us is a very significant thing. And hopefully we can provide the opportunities and the space for that to happen.
Yeah, usually when people arrive, it's probably the most frantic time they're coming. They might be weighed down by whatever, and by the time they leave, you see a totally different disposition. And the biggest way people find out usually about the villa is word of mouth from people who've been there. So I don't think it's just about the facility so much even as what happens to people when they make time for a retreat. And they might have not even realized they had that need, but when it's time for them to leave and go back, they find themselves seeing differently, thinking differently, feeling differently, and it becomes obvious to those around them. And so I think they start to ask them, what have you done? And then they tell them how they've been on retreat, they've been at the villa, and that's how we get a lot of folks who come kind of as people go and are ambassadors for not just the villa, but for the importance of taking time for retreat and for cultivating your spirituality.
Sister Jane Marie Kudlatz, one final comment about the center itself.
I would just say that we welcome the opportunity to share the sacred space that we have with anyone who is seeking.
And Matt Abramowski, one final comment.
I would echo what Sister Jane Marie said. Our doors are always open. We're delighted to have folks come because that's why the villa's there, for folks to come, hopefully, and find it to be a place of oasis in their journey.
Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for being
having
with us. Have a good day, and God be with you.
Spotlight has been a production of CTNY, the Catholic Television Network of Youngstown. Your program host was Father James Corda.
$33 million Americans have descended into poverty. And as their futures fall, so does our nation's.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her. Instead of sitting on the couch, I hope to clean up.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I sent my husband a love email.
What have I done for my marriage today? It's a good question.
I gave her a call and say, thinking of it. And the kids.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
We're going to the museums as a family.
What have I done for my marriage today?
I made my wife coffee and breakfast this morning.
It's going to be her birthday next week, so I've been spending time today making arrangements to make that extra special.
Oh, we're spending the day together.
I bought her an orchid.
Hassan was able to let me sleep in by taking care of him in the morning.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. She's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Small changes can make a world of difference. Get started at foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.